it's all temporary. When you find yourself on top, hanging with the winners and the cream of the crop, it's all just temporary. Remember that money don't make the man, as long as you're doing everything you can. It's all just temporary, 'cause everything comes and goes, no telling where the winds will blow. It's all temporary. Vexing in your vanity, wasting your time, seeking to find victory. Temporary, 'cause everything comes and goes, no telling where the winds will blow. It's all temporary, 'cause everything begins and ends. Don't get caught up chasing the wind. It's all temporary. It's all just temporary. It's all temporary. It's all
.3 WVKR, independent radio, Poughkeepsie, New York. Brand new music, Andy Stack. It's still unreleased, so we're taking a listen to it here on these airwaves at WVKR. That was Temporary. Andy Stack with Buffalo Stack will be my guest today. He should be calling pretty soon, momentarily. And we're going to listen to one more track of his, so you kind of get familiar with his music before we talk to him. He sent 4 new tracks. And yeah, this will be released really soon. And in the meantime, we'll listen to some great new music by Andy Stack. This one is called Showbiz Girl. Let's take a listen right here, right now. And then hopefully we'll have Andy on the line with us momentarily. Thanks for tuning in. 91.3 WVKR, independent radio, Poughkeepsie.
Shade and shadow, stages and light. She'll rock you like thunder, then she's off in the night. She'll dance you with walls like a tilt-a-whirl. But don't set your sights on the showbiz girl. Gone in the night is the showbiz girl. She can turn a phrase, she can reel you in. You'll be so amazed, she'll make your head spin. It ain't magic in that wand that she twirled. Don't set your sights on the showbiz girl. Gone in the night is the showbiz girl. Son, you've got to stay home, leave that on the shelf. Son, I've been watching you stumble, get a hold of yourself. She'll make it look natural with special effects. She'll pull on your heartstrings like a marionette. Don't be surprised when it all unfurls. Don't set your sights on the showbiz girl. Gone in the night is the showbiz girl. Jolting jigs and rolling reels, batting eyelashes and 3-inch high heels. It's great entertainment, but it ain't the real world. Don't set your sights on the showbiz girl. Gone in the night is the showbiz girl. Son, you've got to stay humble, leave that on the shelf. Son, I've been watching you stumble, get a hold of yourself. It'll just let you down. You got what you need in your own hometown. So when the lights go dim and the curtains close, let it sink in. It was just a show with makeup and mirrors, dresses and curls, pretty white lies of a showbiz world. Gone in the night, gone in the night, gone in the night is the showbiz girl. Don't you wait, don't hesitate. You might find out when it's too late. Freedom is an ocean, but that don't mean you're free. So come with me, won't you come with me? Don't you wait, take a chance. Don't wait on circumstance. It's never completely right, but you don't have to fight it tonight. Oh, it's tonight. I know your heart has been dragged on the floor, but sometimes it takes just a couple of falls before. So don't you wait, I see you there in your thinking chair. You're coming up with reasons, oh, why you can't believe. Is that fair? Is that fair? Is that fair? Is that fair? Oh, no, I know you hear me when I'm knocking on your door. Come on out the house, we will forget about what came before. Came before. Came before. Came before. I know your heart has been dragged on the floor, but sometimes it takes just a couple of falls before. So don't you wait, don't you wait, don't you wait. I better wait, I better slow down. She will come around. Well, all good things in time, from the seed to the vine, and that's fine, and that's just fine. Well, I know your heart has been dragged on the floor,
91.3 WVKR, independent radio, Poughkeepsie, New York. Music by Buffalo Stack that was called Don't Wait. We also heard brand new music, still unreleased, Showbiz Girl, and we started the show off today, Temporary. It is 4:14. You are tuned into LocalMotion. I am your host, Rita Ryan, here until 6 o'clock with you, and I'm thrilled to say on the phone with me, I have my guest, Andy Stack, and let's see if we can get him on the line here. Andy?
Hi.
Hey, that was a short 45 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the fastest 45 minutes I've ever experienced.
I love it.
You're magical.
Time flies when you're having fun, my friend. So, Andy Stack, thank you for being a guest here today on LocalMotion. I have seen you perform so many times. I love your performing style, and each and every time I've seen you, it always seems like you get better, if that's even possible. I always like to.
Thanks.
Yeah, I always like to start.
I'm trying to get better.
Well, I guess
that's what I'm trying to do.
I guess you never stop trying as a musician, right? You just keep.
Yeah, well, I think there's different types of musicians. There's people who are they're very singular and innate in their expression of music, and they're coming from maybe. I don't know where they're coming from, a spiritual place or a intuitive place, and then there's, people that are practicing instrumentalists, and they're trying to study, the masters and improve on a, I hate to say technical level, but there are people that think of music that way. It's such a wide, concept and such a wide practice,
right.
Music that you can. But for me, I guess, I try to improve and learn new things. It's part of what makes it playful and interesting to me.
I enjoy watching you on social media when you post and you're experimenting and trying all these new things. And I think you were trying, a lap steel not long ago. And you were just, I don't know, it just kind of looks like you're always thinking ahead, being progressive with music and just, I don't know, having fun with it, really.
Yeah. It's a pedal steel that I started learning.
That's it.
I always wanted to learn pedal steel. And in fact, when I was about 20, I bought one, and I was like in college, and I didn't have a lot of money, and I think I bought it on a credit card, and then it's really hard to learn, so I wasn't able to learn it. And then I was a little short on cash, and my friend was like, "What are you doing with that thing? Why don't you sell it? If you're broke, you should sell the pedal steel." So I sold the pedal steel. Then I didn't get around to learning it again until a few months, 2 or 3 months ago, and I was going to buy one. And Adrienne, my girlfriend, said, "You shouldn't buy one. You should ask Facebook. Ask Facebook for a pedal steel."
Smart.
So I did, and then the next day, in the middle of a pandemic, this man named William, who's really cool, he came over. He's like a Vietnam vet, an older guy. He came over to my studio with the pedal steel, and when we set it up, we had a nice chat, a nice hang, and then I got this book. I actually had a book on pedal steel from years ago, and I started going through it one page at a time. So yeah, that's.
Well, Cindy Cashdollar. You could always take a little lesson with her.
I could. We talked on the phone a little bit, and she was giving me some suggestions of things to listen to, and we talked about picks. She plays a lap steel, which is like a kind of an older style of. She plays a lot of different styles of lap steel, but Western swing is like an older style from the 40s, and mine is a pedal steel, so it's a bit of a different style, but the bar technique applies and stuff. And maybe when I'm ready, I'll sit down with her. It's, I'm still kind of beginner, so it's I'm not quite ready for that, but Cindy's great, and she's a great friend, and she's super awesome talent. I'm
lucky to have her. Yeah, she's the best. I adore her. I absolutely adore her. So, Andy, I want to step back again in case listeners again are just tuning in. I've got Andy Stack from Buffalo Stack on the line with us today. I always like to say, this is your life, Andy Stack. You grew up, of course, your name, Buffalo Stack. You grew up in Buffalo, yes? The city of?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the city. I was born in the city of Buffalo and lived there until I was like 6 or 7 years old, and then we moved to the suburbs, little town called East Aurora, but it was 15 minutes from Buffalo, and my grandparents lived in Buffalo, and I spent a lot of time in their house. And my parents worked in Buffalo. My mom was a nurse in the ER at Children's Hospital and later became a nurse practitioner. My stepfather was a police lieutenant for Buffalo Police. So I was, we were in the city a lot. We'd go out, go out on weekends and stuff. And I'd spend, if my parents went away, I'd spend time. And my grandparents. Yeah, so it was, culturally it was Buffalo, but I wasn't really in the city. I was like living this kind of like, middle American suburban,
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah. I had a great music program, an amazing music program.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
High school.
From the research I did, it looked like your mom played the fiddle and the mandolin.
Yeah. My mom played. She started off as playing piano, and actually, when we were really small children, she didn't play much. And then when I heard her play the piano, I was like, "Why have you been holding out for so long?" I mean, but she had 4 kids under the age of 10, so there wasn't a whole lot of time for playing music. But but when we got the piano from her parents, there was a lot of music. My sister took lessons, and my brother and I learned guitar together. And
was guitar your first instrument? Was guitar?
Drums. I started drums in school. Yeah, I was really into drumming. And I still am, actually. I still play the drums as a kind of hobby. I practice the drums. I love drumming. It's so primal. It's so the first kind of music must have been rhythm. If you think of the instinct to dance, or the instinct, just the way time moves and progresses, and the way the seasons change, and everything is rhythm. It's such an interesting element in music, and that if you just listen to drumming on its own, you can kind of wonder where is that music? I mean, because there's melody and lyrics and pitch and form, but I think at the most human and spiritual element is rhythm. So that was what I was introduced first, and I fell really in love with it.
How old?
I was 8 or 9, 4th grade.
In school?
In school, yeah. School music was great. I loved it. And I just learned in school. I didn't take private lessons. I had friends that took private lessons, but I didn't do that. I just played in the marching band, and I went to every week to my little lesson with 4 other kids, and we read out of the drum books, the Ed Sweda drum books. I still remember it like it was yesterday. I had friends that took lessons at the local store, and they would play the beats from Led Zeppelin.
Right.
So I learned the drum beats to Led Zeppelin before I ever knew what the songs were.
Wow.
So I spent a lot of time playing doom, 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 all these beats, and then I would learn. Then I'd hear Good Times, Bad Times, years later. I recognize that.
Wait a minute,
drum.
I know the drum song, the drum part. Yeah,
I know the drum part. Yeah, so that was and then so then my family moved to Indiana, which is a long story, only for a very short amount of time, and the band already had a drummer. There was a little rock band getting started, and the kids. I was a new kid at school, and they let me sit with them. These kids let me sit with them, and they were the music people. They were open-minded to the new kid, and they were starting a band, but they already had a drummer. So I said, I've got a guitar. I don't know how to play it, but I'll figure it out. So that's when guitar came into my life.
By accident. I love how that happens. Electric guitar, or did you start acoustic?
It was electric. My uncle had one in my grandmother's house in Buffalo that I was telling you about, up in the attic. It belonged to my uncle. He played in the 70s or something, maybe the early 80s, but probably the 70s. And he just became a lawyer and left his electric guitar and amp in the attic. And when I found that, it was that was like finding a treasure,
a pot of gold.
was like, wait, you have an electric guitar and an amplifier up in that attic, and it's been there since before I was born. And I took it, and I plugged it in. I'll never forget how it smelled. To this day, when I find an old tube amp and I plug it in, and I smell it, I just get so high off it.
Nice.
So I plugged this thing in, and it worked. And I'll never forget it. I can picture it now. I know what the electric cord, I know how the knobs feel. Like if I look back in my mind, I could touch the knobs, and I could feel them moving in my hand, and I could smell the old dust being cooked in the back of that amp and the way it sounded when you turned it up. And, I fell in love with that. I didn't even have to play. I couldn't play anything. I would just tune the strings to like a chord and just move my hand around.
So how did you learn to play? Like just self-taught?
Well, no, I had a teacher when I was 8. So we moved to Indiana, and my mom, I wanted to play drums. I was playing drums in school, so she said I could have private lessons on the drums, but I had to if I was good and I behaved, because she had 4 kids. Now she was by herself at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Kids. So if I was good, I could. So I was, of course, I'd do anything if I could play the drums. I mean, to me, it was like, it was absolute fascination. So, so I ended up having a drum teacher, a guy I'm still friends with, and this was in 1993 or so. I'm still friends with this guy. He played drums and guitar, so we would trade off, and he started showing me some guitar stuff. So we'd play drums, and then we'd play guitar. And I'm still doing this. I mean, how many years later? Almost 30 years, 27 years later, I'm still doing the same thing.
Love it.
We'd play, and it was, and he would drop me off. I was his last lesson, like on Wednesday nights. My mom paid $6.50 for a half-an-hour lesson.
Oh, my God.
And that in the middle of Indiana in migrant farm worker country, and that $6.50 would turn into about 3 or 4 hours of us jamming.
Wow.
And I was 12, and Chris was 28 or 30,
Awesome.
and we just hit it off.
Awesome.
I'll never forget his voice, and he sang. And I'll never forget what he sang in his beautiful voice, and it would make you cry.
Oh.
He would sing Van Morrison and stuff, and I'll never forget what it was like to hear him sing.
What a great person for you to have met at that age.
Oh, it was absolutely fantastic. And when you're that age, you're so innocent. It's like pure love.
Right.
It's all so new.
Right.
When he sang Van Morrison, Brown Eyed Girl, the most trite song. No one wants to hear Brown Eyed Girl. To me, I couldn't hear enough of that.
Mm-hmm.
When he said, "Oh yeah, this is a song you should learn," and then he'd play it and he'd sing it, and that's kind of, even to this day, that's kind of how I teach. Like I just sat down yesterday with one of Adrian's cousins, and she wanted to show him guitar. We just started playing and singing. Like, okay, this is how you do it.
Right.
So and then you pass it on. So
so after you picked up the guitar, did you stick with the guitar, or you still kind of went back to drumming?
I still played drums, but that kind of that kind of went into the background. And it's so funny, in those years, everything moved so rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
So like after I came back around 9th grade, we moved back to Buffalo. My mom was there for like an education, like to pay back part of her schooling to get like advanced degrees, because she was becoming a nurse practitioner rather than a nurse. So she went there as part of this program. So anyway, we moved back, and I went and got into high school. And then once I got into high school, the guitar became my primary focus, a lot more than my schoolwork too. And I had a really great. It's funny when I think about public schools, and I think about like my path and how much that had an effect on me, a positive effect. I had a really great music program in my high school, and it was everything from like concert band where I played drums, to school musicals where we acted and sang, to a jazz band where we went to like jazz competitions around the state, to having a rock band, to my brother and I and 2 friends having a barbershop quartet where we sang like 4-part harmony. If it was a teacher's birthday, we'd go to sing for their sing for their birthday, so I had to. And my teacher, who was the high school band director, he came from New York City, where he came up in both rock and roll and jazz and classical music.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So he was like, he could conduct, he could play clarinet, he could beautifully. I mean, like world class.
Makes all the difference, right? When you have this in school and you've got this great music department and great teachers fostering this, makes all the difference.
Yeah, it was awesome because you're learning the language at a young age, and you're learning, So anyway, he was very serious, this guy, about learning to read music and learning to improvise and play jazz and know about classical music forms. We had like a theory class where we'd like take down like sonata allegro form and learn about everything from Gregorian chant to like 12-tone music. And then I was also preparing to like go to college to do jazz. So and then I started taking lessons with people in town. So yeah, I was on this kind of like educated, like serious trajectory, although the time, the 90s, very much like the culture, like American culture was very much centered in rock and roll. I mean, all the radio stations were classic rock radio stations. MTV was Nirvana, and you know what I mean? That was a big influence too for all of us.
Right.
And if you went out to a club, it'd be like, not that I was doing a lot of that as a teenager, but I did some of it. And in fact, I played in a lot of blues clubs. I ended up joining a band with some adults where I was like playing lead guitar.
While you were in high school?
Yeah, like 16. I was working at McDonald's, and then I ended up getting this gig, and I'll never forget. I had this festival gig. It was like on Lake Erie, and I was either gonna do the gig and and lose my job at McDonald's, or say no to the gig and keep my job at McDonald's. But I said yes to the gig, and then I never looked back.
Wise choice.
So then I was making like $100 a night, and that's kind of what, if you play, at one of these clubs, and you might make $150.
Right.
So I mean, that was really it. So I was, I was playing blues, and it was like Chicago blues, and a lot of shuffles. But, in Buffalo they called it the Buffalo Shuffle, which is really just a Chicago shuffle. It's the same sound. So it was like this kind of 12-bar blues style, which happens like, in every city in America. But
right.
There was kind of a long history of people who played blues and some jazz and stuff too. And so every weekend and even some weeknights, I was a working musician. That was it.
That's really cool. And at the age of 16.
Yeah, I had $100 bills in a sock in my closet. It's like piled up.
Awesome. That's a great thing when you're that age. And then you're like, okay, music, this is what I'm going to do for college, right? So you must have looked at a few different colleges?
Yeah. I ended up going to SUNY Purchase because, like, my family were pretty, like, working class. We didn't have, like, a lot of money. So, like, there was, like, and I wanted to do, like, jazz and contemporary music, so there was really like Berkeley or places like that, which were really expensive.
Yes. And
then there was SUNY Purchase.
I'm surprised did you look at Fredonia, because they had like a decent program too, or no?
I think I did audition for them, and I could have gone there, but that was classical.
Oh, okay.
At the time, it was classical, which would have been a whole different thing, and I did some of that actually.
Right.
I still practice some of that stuff.
That's awesome. That's what my daughter's into, so I'm into that, merged into that whole world, that's for sure. But
that's great.
Purchase has a great theater and music program, and I'm guessing that's the way it was in the 90s as well. So. Oh,
yeah. I started there in 98, and I graduated in 2002.
With a degree in?
Jazz studies.
Nice.
It's funny. I was like trained in like improvising and composing jazz, which I still kind of do in a way, but I ended up getting more into like the rootsy rock and roll side of things after, in my life. You kind of just go where you go, where.
Well, you might backtrack too, because you're still young, so in a decade you might be back into the jazz thing. You don't know. You never know.
You don't know. I'm actually teaching a class on jazz this weekend for the Ashokan Center.
Oh, you are? Tell me about it.
And, it's Western and Swing Week.
Uh-huh.
So every year they have, these camps, and this year it's online because of the pandemic. But so there's teachers from all over the country that are tuning in on Zoom, and they're teaching classes. In fact, I took one this morning from this guy Rob Stein. He was teaching a class on lap steel. So I took a class, and it's all new to me, so it was great.
Oh, awesome!
And, yes, my class is going to be on swing rhythm guitar, which is just like how to play basic rhythm guitar for swing, which is, I do a little bit of that with Cindy Cashdollar, and we have a Western swing band called the Syncopators, and we play at the Falcon once a month, or we did. So I do some of that with her, and then I'm doing a class on the style of Charlie Christian, who is a guitarist in the late 30s, early 40s. He had a very short career and died at like 20-something years old of tuberculosis, but he was really the first electric guitar soloist. So if you listen to him, you can hear the seeds of everything from T-Bone Walker to Chuck Berry to every rock and roll and jazz musician that came after him. So I like to go back to that stuff and check it out. So I'm going to be teaching a couple of his solos.
Good for you. That's awesome. And if people want to are interested and they're hearing this now, they can go to the Ashokan Center's website to register?
Yeah. Ashokan in New York State.
Olive Bridge. Yep.
Olive Bridge, yeah. And you can sign up for the class, I'm sure, yeah. So my classes are on Friday and Saturday.
Oh,
so
very cool.
Yeah, so it's interesting, yeah. So anyway, like the idea of like being a student, and I've been thinking a lot about like, you mentioned like talking about my career, and on one hand, like I look at my career and feel like I was talking to like my mother-in-law about this, and just conversation, that I felt like I was always looking for some sort of singular voice, and because we look to models of or people that to us have like a style or have a fingerprint, and they've kind of left their mark on things, and I feel like I never really found that, and I'm just always studying, and also like the idea that like if you're working, and this is something that goes back to like public school education and all these things, like my teacher was like, he told me, you have to play all styles of music, and if you want to make a living. And okay, well, I guess I was learning how to make a living in music as far back as like freshman, sophomore year of high school. So what I do is find my way into a situation, and the whole time, I was trying to write music and find my own way, and I don't know how any of that translates, but I guess it's all part of the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Martin Sexton has a really good song about that, right? In the Journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the Journey. Yeah, he's great. I mean, he's an interesting guy to me because I listened to him when I was really young, like in college, and went to see him a lot in those years, and he was really influential on me, actually, if I think about it. Mm-hmm. It's just like his emotional connection to the music and his finesse and the way he plays guitar, and obviously his voice is like ridiculous.
Yeah.
But and also like the idea like something like that can, like the Americana thing, you can like bounce between something that sounds like like an old like Bob Wills or like Western kind of song to like a R&B Prince, and he's just like kind of takes his influence from a lot of different things. And I mean, a guy like that is also mystifying to me because like I have all this formal education, and I got like to be like a functional working musician, but people who I see have this like innate like muscular raw talent are just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's just
Absolutely. It is because his education was this busking at Harvard Square, and
exactly.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, you think and there's no right or wrong way to do it.
Right. There isn't. Everybody has their own path, for sure. And Martin. So when you were in SUNY Purchase, you somehow became part of the New York Ska Jazz Ensemble?
Yeah. That was my first like real touring gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great gig. I was 19, and I was in my sophomore year, and I think I had a job at that point. I was delivering bagels at like 5 in the morning before class. I'd get up at 5 in the morning and drive around Westchester like in a 1991 Ford Escort, and I would deliver bagels to all these places. And I only think of that job because when I got the opportunity to audition for New York Ska Jazz, I drove to Queens to the leader's house. His name's Freddie. And I got a bunch of tapes. He gave me a bunch of cassette tapes.
Mm-hmm.
So I listened to them in my car over and over again. And because there was going to be an audition. So basically, Freddie was working for the school as an accompanist for dancers and stuff. It was like his side hustle. Like every musician has a lot of jobs.
Sure.
Like Freddie he's famous for being a saxophone player in New York Ska Jazz and has toured all over the world for 20 or 30 years. And they have tons of records out. They have a huge catalog, a long history of touring. They've been very successful. They played at North Sea Jazz Festival and big, beautiful festivals all over the world. But he also, when he's home, he's hustling. So he was accompanying dance classes on piano, and he asked one of our friends, who's the guitarist on campus? Who's the guy? We need someone to tour, in the ska band. And so my friend recommended me.
Wow.
Anyway, I ended up auditioning, and I think it was my first time in a Manhattan rehearsal studio. It was on 30th Street. It's a place called Ultrasound. A lot of people know about it. Musicians, it's this kind of, notorious factory of, bands on a rotating schedule. Every hour there's a new band coming in. We pay $20 to rehearse or something. Right. So that was my first experience with that, and I ended up doing the audition, and apparently they conferred after the audition. They
loved you.
And Freddie said, "Who do you want to take?" And he said, "The kid."
Oh man.
So yeah,
and
that's how I started. I was a kid, and now I'm not the kid anymore.
Well, hey, you're lucky. You keep moving forward, keep getting wiser. So you toured like Europe as a 19-year-old sophomore.
Yeah. We that was my gig, and we first started in Switzerland and in Western Europe. Played a lot of clubs in Germany and Holland, and Spain, Italy, and it was great.
Did you have to take like a semester off, or was this all in the summer?
I did. I took a semester off. Actually, I took a year off, and then I came back and I graduated in 3 years because they gave me life experience credit for my touring.
Nice.
But I look back at those years, and it was really a fruitful and fortunate experience. I mean, the audiences. It was called New York Ska Jazz Ensemble. So one part of it was like a ska reggae experience where there was like dancing and summer festival gigs where it was all about, kind of like fun and entertainment. But there was also jazz. So we did jazz standards. Mm-hmm. So when we weren't playing in like a club, like a dance club or a festival stage, we'd be doing like a small jazz club where we would play quietly and have like extended solos. And there's like a long history of like the Jamaican jazz, the Scatolites and other Ernest Ranglin, great guitarist, and a lot of these guys were listening to music that came from the States, like from New Orleans, and they're listening to R&B and our artists and singers, and they, that style evolved in its own right. And they just used the island beats, but a lot of the harmonies and the style was influenced by American music. So they kind of had these parallel trajectories. And so I really enjoyed, at that point, I was really fancied myself a jazz guitar player, and I was really like, going for it on the solos. I just couldn't wait to like take my solo every night. That was...
And the audiences too, the audiences in Europe, they love American music.
It was incredible. Oh yeah, they loved it. They listened really well, and the culture was so great. Mm-hmm. They shared their food. The food was incredible, and I went to a lot of like galleries and saw sites, and I remember being in Rome and seeing ancient Roman ruins and like watching a sunset,
Just
on a cliff in
beautiful.
Rome.
Yeah.
And like seeing art galleries in Bologna and in Paris. We played on a boat, like a boat in Paris. And
On the Seine River there.
Jazz club.
And, yeah.
Yeah, right there. It was
beautiful.
so it was incredible. I mean, I was almost too young to appreciate it. Looking back, I'm like, oh my God, you little shit.
Right. I want to go do that again, So
yeah, exactly. But life doesn't work that way.
Well, not always.
Else.
Not always.
But it was good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was tired of ska, though. I got tired of ska, and I wanted to do. I left actually to start writing my own songs and doing that.
Right.
That was kind of like at the end of that was when I started like. And then after that, I started playing with the singer-songwriters, and I was like 25 and started playing with Jonas Smith.
Yes, he's wonderful. He loves you. You guys are like, what a great team the two of you are together. There's a lot of your music that I've listened to when I had Jonah on too. And you guys are really a great collaboration together. So after college, after SUNY Purchase, you stayed down that way. You were down in the city, right?
Yeah. I lived in mostly Queens. Long Island City was really my stomping grounds, right on the East River between Greenpoint, Brooklyn, and Astoria, Queens. I mean, when I first got there, it was kind of an up-and-coming neighborhood. Mm-hmm. It was like an immigrant kind of neighborhood where some artists had moved in, a kind of typical story. And now it's evolved to be like gentrified and, very modern and beautifully constructed city on the East River. But when I was there, it was pretty quiet. Actually, I thought I found myself a country oasis in the middle of New York City, one stop from Manhattan. So,
well, you did temporarily. Really temporarily, that's what it was. Well, and then of course you found our beautiful Hudson Valley. So we're thrilled that you're calling the Hudson Valley home now, which is super cool. It's great. Yeah. So you have a recording studio. I know you've been producing. I mean, I've been getting some great CDs, and I've been seeing Andy Stack, producer, Andy Stack on guitar. I've been seeing you do a lot of producing work. Yeah. So, I moved to Beacon in 2015. I was in Hudson before then, and then kind of needed to be closer to New York City because I still do session work and touring gigs that leave from New York and that rehearse in New York. Mm-hmm. So I needed to be close to New York, but I didn't want to live in the city anymore. So Beacon was like the perfect middle ground where I could keep all my Hudson Valley contacts and gigs and, all my friends and then be able to get to the city. And it worked out great. I rented a studio. I have a commercial space in the old high school. Nice.
The old Beacon High School has been turned into artist quarters and artist suites. So there are probably 100 different artisans and artists that rent in the space, and I have a big classroom. It's one room, and it actually has a fantastic sound. It's got old cement walls that are real thick, and it's really well constructed. A big, thick cement tile floor.
Nice.
That it's conducive to. The more I learn about recording, because I wasn't really trained in recording, I'm just kind of learning by doing it. Mm-hmm. The art of engineering and all that stuff, the audio side. The more I learn about it, the more I appreciate the space. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of like having. There's some talk of moving it. It's kind of a long story, but for the moment, I'm hanging on to it because the sound is great. And so anyway, I moved the studio there in 2015, and I didn't have any idea how it was going to turn out. It was kind of like bold. It was a bold and adventurous decision looking back on it because I had bought equipment and put a lot of money on a credit card, and I had this dream, and I felt like this was where I'd be useful, and I'd be able to be of service, and I think it would use my talents in the most constructive way. Because just having a band, I wanted to have my own band, and it did well enough that I was able to keep it going for a while, but it wasn't like I could only do that. I had to make money in other ways. So the studio ended up was my plan, and and it went fantastically well. Thank God, So I met. There's a local music store called Jake's Main Street Music, and there's a songwriter. He and his dad run the shop. His name's Jake Burns. Yeah, Jacob Burns. So that was one of the first records I did there, and it sounds great. I love that record, and that led me to a whole lot of other people, and then those people recommended people, and so I've produced like several indie records, and Jonas Smith and I did a record there, which is great. I love that record. It's called Stay Close. There's a lot of close harmonies on it. My sister is singing on it too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so anyway, and now I'm doing another record there at the moment with this guy named John Brown, and we'll send you his CD.
Please.
So, so it's like, it's funny, like, I was in New York working in so many different situations as a musician that I kind of got the idea that being able to adapt in different sounds and different styles and having the experience of having worked with so many great producers and not only in record making, but in theater, and in like jingles and everything else that you do as a working musician, like all those, you kind of learn by watching.
Right.
So and I felt like being able to play drums and different things, it just seemed like, okay, well, this is the most, and I'm just fascinated by sound. I don't know why the sound element there's so many different ways to listen to a record.
Absolutely.
Like you can listen to it only from a lyrical standpoint, or listen to it from a sound standpoint, but somehow the sound has always been so fascinating.
And you may hear different things when you hear songs, the same, you hear them the second time, or like I would guess if you're recording and you're listening for one specific thing and then you're listening, say, for the bass part or something like that. So you're hearing all kinds of different things come out, so it's always pretty fascinating. I've been fascinated with the recording side of things too. I think it's kind of neat.
Especially if some good speakers or good headphones. It's an immersive experience, and it's a big part of it. Like and for live too. That just I don't know. It's a visceral like sensual experience. Just audio.
Absolutely. Andy, before the world shut down, you had a really nice thing going on. Tell me about Broadway.
Oh, yeah. It was interesting. I was playing guitar and some other stringed guitar-like instruments in a musical called Girl from the North Country. It's a Broadway show at the Belasco Theater in 43rd and Broadway in New York City. It's a musical that was written by an Irish playwright who's won a lot of awards. I haven't checked out any of his other stuff, but apparently he's a very important voice of his generation. His name is Connor McPherson, and he wrote a play, and the soundtrack is all Bob Dylan songs that are used in more of an abstract way. So it's an interesting musical in that it's not like chronological, like the work of Carole King or not that I haven't seen that, and it's not written by Bob as an original piece to go with the narrative. He's using Bob's songs in a spiritual, universal way. So there's a separate story that takes place before Bob was born in the 40s, and these songs, which are so universal and timeless, make they make appearances in all the scenes. So it's a musical, but it's a spiritual, mysterious kind of musical. And Bob dug it, I guess. And it seems like it's something he
was. He there? I was going to say, was he like in the audience or?
He did see it. I think he saw it at the off-Broadway production, which I wasn't involved in. And he did. He loved it.
Awesome.
But he went as an anonymous viewer.
Of course he did.
Yeah, he was in the back in a black hoodie or something.
Yeah, with sunglasses on. Yeah, of course.
So, Yeah, so that was an interesting gig, and I wasn't really seeking. It's funny, like I just laugh about a lot of these places I find myself because I wasn't really seeking to be a Broadway pit musician.
Uh-huh.
I was like doing records in my band in the Hudson Valley, and
But this is a good thing. You must be in the union, and you must have gotten a call or something. I mean, how?
Yeah, well, it's the most odd hookup because I had done theater before a lot with this guy Duncan Sheep.
Yeah, sure.
Who was great singer-songwriter and who turned musical composer.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a super awesome guy, like very creative guy, really easy to work with, always super prolific. He's written like tons of records and tons of musicals. He's always doing something. So I was one of the guys, his kind of go-to dudes. So I was doing musical theater with him, but he's like a pop rock artist. It wasn't always union work because it was off Broadway or at an experimental kind of theater. And then I did one with Suzanne Vega that he was co-writing, and I was on stage with Suzanne. So I was doing some theater stuff, but it was really in the kind of rock and roll world.
Right. Yep.
And this came up, oddly enough, through Connor Kennedy.
Really?
Yeah, it's a very strange... Connor was on tour with Steely Dan,
yeah,
which is a whole other story, incredible story. And they were... One of the guys in Steely Dan was friends with the contractor for Broadway.
Oh, my God.
Some of the veteran musicians do Broadway. A lot of the touring guys do Broadway when they're not on the road. I mean, it's one of the things that pays money.
Yeah.
So some of these Steely Dan dudes were in touch with one of the contractors, and they were looking for probably a young-ish guitar player to do this Bob Dylan musical. And because we're on stage, and I don't know what their criteria was. I don't think they wanted a typical Broadway pit musician. They probably wanted someone from like Americana World or someone that could. I don't know what they were looking for. But
they were looking for you.
They were looking for me.
Yeah.
But they were looking for Connor, but Connor didn't want to do it. Connor said, "I don't want to go audition for this thing. You should go do it." So I went and I auditioned. So I still had to audition. It wasn't like they just gave me the job, but so I went into the city and auditioned, and I didn't really know what to expect, but then they offered me the gig.
That's pretty cool.
Super great.
Yeah. Super great. And when they come back, I know right now Broadway's dark through the end of this year. When they come back, that's your job again, yes?
I'm signed up. I'm still
awesome.
Yeah, I'm I guess employed with them, although we're not, obviously not getting paid, but we're on I guess we're on the list. We're still part of the show. It's
Absolutely.
Such an odd time. It's a confusing time.
Yeah, it really is. I've heard great reviews from Girl from the North Country. Great reviews. So I'm definitely going to go check it out once Broadway opens up. I miss all that live experiences, of live music, of theater, of concerts, of any genre. It's just a strange time, and I do enjoy, seeing live streams, but it's obviously not the same vibe, so.
No, it's not the same. I mean, especially in a theater.
Right.
The Dylan show is in one of the oldest theaters in New York City. It's the theater where the legend has it Houdini did his show.
Oh, nice.
Back in I don't know if it was like the 20s and he would make an elephant disappear, and the elephant lived in the basement, and so the theater is gorgeous,
mm-hmm.
and it's and it sounds amazing, and the decor is as it's been for I don't know how long, 100 years.
Yeah.
So there's all this vibe when you walk into it, and then you have a sound crew that's like the best.
Mm-hmm.
Like these guys are making it sound incredible.
And lighting, too. Lighting is such a
big
factor.
Lighting,
yeah.
all of it, like every single factor, every single member of the team is like super dedicated.
Right.
And like my only gig is to play the guitar, like nothing else.
Are you on stage or are you in the pit?
I'm on stage.
On stage?
I'm on stage,
mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, not for every single part of it, but yeah, I walk across stage and I engage in a couple of the scenes. And
Do you go
in
out
my
and
own
sign the
little way.
playbill after?
No, they're not interested in the guitar player. They're interested in the heartthrob lead roles. I'm kind of like I'm a little bit invisible, but not musically. Musically, it's it's there, and the book is really the music that was written is really great. It's Bob's music, so there's an Americana, there's a folk music element to it. So all the instruments are acoustic, but it was arranged by this guy Simon Hale, who's like a very fine musician from England, and he's orchestrated a lot of Broadway shows and records, commercial records, and so forth. So his style is very deliberate. So there's it, and very refined and just really well done. I mean, he's a very great artist. So the parts are very specific. Sometimes there's like, I'm playing some slide guitar where it's like, obviously you can't really write it out. It's more about the interpretation but some of it is like on classical guitar, and it's written out, and it's in harmony with the other members of the ensemble, and it's kind of creating an arrangement. So, it's kind of like, it goes back to like a lot of these experiences. I've been drawing on, what I mean to say is I've been drawing on, when I was doing that gig, experiences through my whole life, like sitting in the concert band in high school and, learning from my high school teacher how to follow a conductor and how to read music and how to also rock out and not play stiffly and also play with feel but be able to, fall into for the greater good as well, and so a lot of these, like, I guess like a lifetime of experience has brought me to that point, although I didn't really consciously think of it that way, but when you reflect on it, you're like, oh yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All this stuff helped me out.
I think this time that we are all not going out and not being able, like you as a musician, being able to perform, there must be a lot of reflection going on, right? And how, like, are you finding, wow, I'm writing more songs, my creativity is at an all-time high, or?
For me, it's, no, I'm not really, I'm like learning the pedal steel, and I'm making some records for people in my downtime. But like Adrian and I bought a house, so I've been fixing up this house.
Congratulations, that's a huge thing. Yeah.
So there's like, that's going on. I've been producing a little bit, but I haven't really, I'm not quite sure like what I have to say, I'm just like silent. I'm kind of dumbfounded.
Right.
I'm kind of taking it all in and just, I don't know. I guess maybe there's a deeper incentive that I'll find, but right now I'm like kind of processing it all and kind of taking a step back and taking a breath and, like, when are we ever going to get this chance to really reflect again? I don't know. Probably never. I hope never.
I hope never.
At the same time, it's a gift to be able to. I mean, I was a whirlwind. I was trying to do my band and find the style and make my way as a quote unquote artist, but also trying to keep food on the table and pay the rent as a working musician in the union and so forth. And I'm like trying to make sense of it all. Right. Like, wow, I was a maniac.
Right.
And for me, I just feel like, wow.
Right.
And also, I'm like, in September I'm going to be 40.
Are you really? Aw.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm like, so a lot of this is like, it's there's a lot of serendipity and the timing of things, and I'm not quite sure where what it all means. I just, I'm concerned for the world. Not just obviously the COVID virus, but the racial relations and the police brutality and the international kind of tensions, and it just seems like the world we're living in is treacherous.
Yeah, it's a scary place right now, and I think I don't know. For me, it's just like when I heard your voice, a familiar voice. It's like you just have to remember the goodness because we see so much that isn't, and I don't know. I can imagine you guys as musicians. when you hit the stage again, or that first night when you're back in the Broadway theater, how grateful you're going to be, And I know me as an audience member, I already can't wait to buy a Broadway ticket or go to the Met or, the Falcon for live music. And it's just, we just, I don't know, maybe take this stuff for granted. And now that it's been gone for a few months, it's, maybe we all will look at things a little differently and a little calmer and a little, I don't know, more in the moment.
Yes, exactly. That's very well put. I mean, in a way, maybe I'm trying to do less so that when I do partake in experiences, I can be fully present and know what it means to sit quietly, and know what it means to. It's like you can't appreciate sound without silence.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the real, and great composers or great visual artists will say that it's not just the notes, but it's the space between. So having this enormous amount of space, for this generous amount of space, that will allow us to really appreciate the content when it happens, and
mm-hmm.
And the meaning of it.
Right, exactly.
But but on a societal level, I'm still a little bit not confused, but I'm just a little bit unsure of what the role of an artist is. I mean, if you look at other turbulent times in history, there seemed to be like this great outpouring of art. If you think of a civil rights era, you think of Marvin Gaye or, Bob Marley, or you think of the anti-war movement, you think of John Lennon,
mm-hmm.
And these incredible, iconic songs, and a time when music seemed to have all this weight and value, and I'm not quite sure what has that value now, and that's one thing I'm kind of thinking about and wrestling with. Like,
mm-hmm.
have we taken the value with social media and like the deconstruction of the record business and so forth? Like, have we taken the value out of music?
I certainly hope not. Not in my world, but that's my little bubble. And I think music is what heals us. I'm itching to go to a museum just to revel in all the beautiful art and just silence and just seeing and experiencing a concert again, like whether it's the Philharmonic or whether it's a rock concert, whatever. I think we need the arts more than ever, Andy, and I don't know that that's going to change.
Maybe it'll be even better. Like, maybe now maybe we'll appreciate it more.
Yeah, that's what I'm
thinking. So sick of looking at their news feed, they'll get to a club and they'll just turn their phone off and leave it in the car.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I've had to take a I don't do too much social media. It's just too much anymore, and it's just like, give me music to listen to, give me some good radio, and just a lot less social media, because that stuff can swallow you up and put you in places that aren't so good for the head,
Mm-hmm.
So
it's pretty negative.
Yeah. Well, we are living in negative times.
Remember that there's radio too.
There is radio.
You can listen to a radio show. One night, I broke my radio at home, but one night I was at home with Adrian in Beacon, and we were turning the dial, and Chris Thiele's show, Live from Here, I think it was called, came on.
Yes.
It wasn't digital. It was on the actual, the
mm-hmm.
dial.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like a bunch of fuzz, and then it turned in to this amazing world-class mandolin playing or singing or whatever it was that he was doing with these incredible musicians, and we just sat there and listened to it, and just that experience of being by it was, and my receiver's an old warm receiver from the 70s, and just kind of being curled up next to that,
mm-hmm.
And captive to this live energy coming out of the radio. It was incredible.
Yeah,
the way that
I miss. I'm going to miss that show. That was just canceled.
I know, that's a drag.
It is a drag. And I actually got to see him perform live at the Town Hall. And when he taped that show, I was there like
Wow.
2 weeks before this pandemic hit us and we weren't able to go anymore. And I've always wanted to go, because I'm a big fan of his. And I got to go, and just like this 2-hour taping and how much fun it was. And, I was telling Caroline, this summer we got to go. I can't wait for us to go back. The Town Hall's awesome. It's right by Grand Central. And of course now we've got what we got, But Chris Thiele, speaking of him, he is coming to our area. He's playing a lawn concert at Carramore in Katona on July 18th. So that just reminded me that I need to check on tickets for that. I think they're doing tickets like 5 days prior because it's all weather dependent because it's a lawn. So I think tickets go on sale for that probably around the 11th or 12th of July. So.
Wow, great.
Yeah.
Great. You're gonna take your daughter?
I hope so. She loves him.
Wow, what a cool mom.
Yeah, well, she loves him. We always do stuff like this. That's what I do, And
That's excellent.
Love the arts. So, Andy, you've got some great music coming up. Before we leave our discussion, I want to talk about new release that you got working on. Thank you for sending me the MP3s. We've already listened to 2 of them, and when we're done talking here, I want to play Too Good. Tell me about this new release you got coming out.
Well, it's been in the bag for a long time. Actually, I started it 2 years ago, and I had done one version of it, and then I ended up remixing it and reworking it because I wasn't quite happy with some of the parts. And of course, anytime you do any record, there's going to be some of it that you're not totally thrilled with. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to hit a home run and think like that was the greatest thing I could have done, because by the time you're done with it, you're ready to move on. But I was in the middle of it, and I just kind of felt like it was unfinished. So I took some time to rework it, and then finally finished it like towards the end of like probably a year ago, or maybe last fall, coming on a year ago. And then when I was traveling to New York to do the rehearsals for this Broadway show, I was working on the artwork and I was getting ready to release it, and then the pandemic kind of happened, and I just wasn't quite sure like the best way to do it and the best timing. So it's been finished for a while. They were songs that I had written during a pretty tumultuous period in my life. There was a lot going on, so it was very much a cathartic kind of record, and in a way that was the purpose it served for me. But then I thought, like, okay, well, if it served a purpose for me, maybe I should let it out, and maybe it's time to let it out, and maybe someone else can get some meaning, or
sure,
some consolation or entertainment, whatever it is they could get from it. Maybe they can, but I haven't actually released it. I was contemplating releasing it under my own name, but I'll probably release it as Buffalo Stack. I'm not quite sure how or when, but soon, very, very soon.
I think you should do it for your 40th birthday. I mean, what a perfect commemoration. You're hitting 40. You've got new music coming out and turning a new page. And yeah, I mean, what a great, tie-in.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So you're going to play those 2 songs. I could tell you about them if that would be helpful.
Yeah. Tell me about Too Good.
Okay, Too Good. It's Too Good, or Too Good to Be True is the full title. Okay. That's like kind of my version of R&B. It's like a kind of an R&B slow jam, and it's got the guys from the Restless Age are on it.
Oh, nice.
We did that basic track at their studio. Adrian Reju's doing harmonies.
Nice.
And so that's that track. It's kind of a slow jam, and I love the bass and drums. Brandon and Lee are great on that. And then the other track is Found Me that you haven't played?
Yes.
Okay, so that one is...
yes, that'll be the one after.
found me. Yeah, we did that in my studio in Beacon, and that's Jesse Murphy.
Oh, he's
on
great.
bass.
He's great.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he's awesome. And
Mm-hmm.
Michael Bram on drums.
Wow. Okay.
You know him. He
Sure.
plays in the White Band. So these guys I go way back with Michael Bram. We went to Purchase together.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he was a senior when I was a freshman or something. And then we ended up working in New York and a lot of club gigs together. And
the
we're
music
really good
world
friends.
is a small world,
Yeah.
right?
So those guys are on that, and Adrian is playing mandolin on that, and also it's got Cindy Cashdollar on that record, on that song. She's playing lap steel, and she does a wicked solo on the end.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
that's great.
solo on the end is worth the price of admission right there. So
Well, thank you for sending this music our way. It's yet unreleased. We're playing it here, and I'm going to keep playing it. And
feel free. Yeah, play it. And if people ask about it, maybe I'll release it and send you a link or something. I got to do something with it because I'd like to get on to doing something new, but I should probably
finish this one up.
You got to deal with what you got before you do something new, right?
Yeah, and it kind of feels good, like you're organized, like, okay, I got this done, now I'm moving on to this. But yeah, 40th birthday, there's a good thing going on there, Andy.
Okay.
All right. So listen, thank you. And I don't know if you've heard it, but while I've been listening to you speak, I've heard this beautiful bird in the background by you.
Oh yeah, I'm in Little Deer Isle, Maine right now.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I just heard him chirping very lightly. It wasn't interrupting anything. It was kind of like your music background, quite honestly. And I just heard this little guy just chirping away and just thought it was wonderful. So you guys enjoy your time. Congratulations on all the good things that are happening. You bought a house. You're away. You've got a great Broadway gig waiting for you. New music, and you're teaching. If people want to find out more and stay in touch with you, go to buffalostack.com. You've got a mailing list that you can sign up for. Also, Buffalo Stack has a Facebook page. Andy Stack, it's a pleasure. You're one hell of a musician, a great human being. Much love to you and Adrian, and I really look forward to seeing you guys perform sometime soon.
Right on. Thank you so much. It's really been great to connect with you.
Nice to connect with you, too, and enjoy your time up there, and we'll look forward to having you back in the Hudson Valley soon.
All right. Thank you.
Take care, Andy. Take care.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.
All right, you're tuned into 91.3 WVKR Independent Radio, Poughkeepsie, New York, 516. I'm your host, Rita Ryan. That was Andy Stack of Buffalo Stack. Again, his website, buffalostack.com. Also, you can find Buffalo Stack on Facebook page, and just great music. Let's take a listen to new music that's yet unreleased by Buffalo Stack here on 91.3 WVKR Independent Radio, Poughkeepsie.
You promised me the sun and moon. You sang an easy summer tune. Oh, while the roses are in bloom. For now, the roses turn to dust. You shelter me from the pain. You are keeper of the sky and rain, but love can be a hurricane, and we're doomed. We're just mortals, too good to be true. It's too much to depend on. Well, I could follow through, but my heart is not that strong, and I wanna believe, but I've looked into her lying eyes. I felt her cut me down to size. I have heard her spin an alibi. heart without you, baby. Too good to be true, it's too much to depend on. Well, I could follow through, but my heart is not that strong. Too good to be true, it's too much to depend on. Well, I could follow through, but my heart is not that strong. I wanna believe. Oh, yeah.
Too Good to Be True. New music by Andy Stack. Unreleased, but will be coming out at some point. Take a look out for it. Check out buffalostack.com. You can sign up for their newsletters and also follow them on social media. Andy is just a terrific musician, wonderful human being, and is such a great performer. Total multi-instrumentalist and just the top of his game for sure. We're going to keep the music going now. It's 5:21. Be here till 6 o'clock with LocalMotion as I am each and every Wednesday. Let's take a listen to this track. This has over 100,000 views on it on YouTube, and it's by extraordinary Woodstock producer David Barron and Fiona Glenn. I want you to listen to this. It's just such a beautiful song, and then you can also check out the video on YouTube. Let's take a listen. David Barron and Fiona Glenn, Whisperers.